Lighted Sea Life Acrylic Painting Tutorial by HotPinkZebraPaper. So this is actually a little Bluetooth speaker that I got from my sister that she got from her work, and I might be getting more of them. So if this is something that I certainly enjoy painting it, but if you like it, I might be getting more, so you might get more of these videos. And it lights up rainbow colors in the inside, which is so cool, and it's square, it's fun, and as soon as I got it, I'm like, okay, this is not going to just be white, it's going to be painted. And so that was the plan. So the first side I'm going to show you was the octopus. And so I started with his head, and I'm going to begin with outlining everything with the thinnest lines I can manage at this point. And I'm using multi-surface paint. You don't want to use just regular old acrylic paint because it's just going to chip off and you're going to touch it. It's going to flake. It's going to not end well. So if you use multi-surface, then you're going to have a much better experience with it, but it's a little harder to paint with. So I started with the closest legs or the tentacles to the front and to the camera, and so that's those first two, and then I'm just going to continue working my way back and adding them in and twisting them around, and just wherever it seems like there needs to be a little something, I added in a tentacle, and I did make sure that I had 8. I know there was one thing I was painting that was an octopus, and all of a sudden I was looking, I'm like, okay, there's only 7. This might have been a nail, I'm not sure. And there's only 7 tentacles. I'm like, one of them could be behind him. I'm just gonna leave it. It's okay. But this I did was a little more careful, and I did make sure that there were 8. And so then I'm gonna go and I'm going to be shading in my whole octopus there. And when I'm doing this, I'm using very slightly diluted of that black multi-surface. And you don't want to dilute it too much, or you might mess with the multi-surface quality of it. I wasn't sure. I didn't know how it would react or how it would paint. So just very slightly diluted. It's still going to show some light through it once you have the light on and it's in the dark, but you want it to look like it does have a little bit more shape than not. So then I also had a couple little bubbles, but I'm going to fill in all around the octopus with just solid black multi-surface paint. And I did end up doing 3 coats of this black paint. I only show you one because it's painting black on top of black, and that's just not that entertaining. But I did use 3 coats because I wanted to really block out all light. So then in those areas that you have the shading done, it's going to show through that, and you are still going to get that nice crisp sharp line. If, it doesn't show as much in the video, but even looking at it and looking at photos, you can tell that it's shaded and it's not just gone. And the light definitely shows through it. So I'm just going to fill in all around there. I filled in the bulk of it with a larger brush, and then I went through with a little smaller one to get in and around all of those small little areas. So now for the next one, I'm going to be painting myself a seahorse, and I started with his head. And for all of these critters, okay, I shouldn't say that. For these first 2, I started at the top of them and then kind of worked my way down. That's not the case for either of the next 2, but these first 2. And so I did his head. First I started with his nose, and then I worked up and around his eye, and then down his tummy, and I'm going to be finishing off his tail there. And then I'll go back through and I'll do his back. And so as you're doing this, it's kind of a weird thing because you really need to only look at the shape you're making on the inside. So if, like as you can see, there's a little extra paint there around his tail, that's not going to show in the end because that extra paint, I'm just going to fill in that area with black anyway, so it doesn't matter. So then I also added his fin at the back, and then also a couple little spikes running down the length of his spine. So then with that diluted paint, once again, I'm just going to shade everything pretty much and just go through and add all kinds of little details with it. Adding that shading is optional. If you want to, go ahead. Otherwise, you can just skip it. But then once again, I'm going to go through with that larger brush and just fill in all of the bigger areas with my black paint. And the same thing, I did 3 coats here. And the other thing that I did that I didn't show in the video is I also painted the top of the speaker, because around the actual circle speaker, there's a little space, a little frame around it that would also show the color. And I decided I didn't want anything but the animals to show. And so I filled in that with black paint as well, which doesn't actually really show in anything because it's just black. It's not that exciting. So now for the next side, it's going to be a sea turtle, and these first 3 all use the same steps, the same process: outline, fill it in, shade it, etc. But the last one is a little different, and so that one has a different style to it. But for him, I started with the shell, and then I started adding fins, or flippers, not fins. And then I'm going to be adding his head, and then I'm going to start adding in his patterns. So I started with the shell once again, added another line that's just a little bit inside of it, and then I added the center stripe of the panels, and then I started going around the outside, just like that, and then add the little ones in that outer ring, just like that. I love turtles. If you look at my channel, you'll see that I've done turtle art a couple times before, and I have a turtle. She's a red-eared slider. She's not an aquatic turtle, but I don't know, I love them. They're amazing. They're so graceful and yet clumsy all at the same time. At least her name's Lady. At least Lady is. And I think that's kind of like me. I can be sort of graceful and clumsy all together in one, so I think it's symbolic. I don't know. I'm a turtle in a past life. I'd be okay with that. Yeah. Except for I wouldn't want to eat plastic bags. Oh well. I'm really getting off topic. So I then filled in his eyes and around his face, and then I'm going to go through yet again with more of that diluted black for shading. And around the panels on her shell, I just did a little bit like around each edge, same thing with the rest. And so for this one, it's a little less. The others were more on the realistic side, and I did this, when I was actually painting it, I did this turtle first, and she turned out a little bit more of like an Aztec look to me, which doesn't go with the other ones as much, but I still like it, so oh well. And then I'm going to be filling in around it with some more of that black paint. Surprise, surprise. Filling in all of those lines. And if you wanted to, as you're adding the next coats, if you're wondering if it's going to work, any spots need to have extra paint, you could turn the light on and look to see where it's shining through. So then for my sea jellies, I first painted their bells, and then I'm going to go through, and this is liquid latex, and I'm going to be adding all of their tentacles. And so first I did those little stringy ones, and I'm going to be adding the thicker ones, so there's 3 of each. And so the liquid latex I'm using is tinted blue. It's because it's for nails. It's a product called Liquid Palisades, or it's a Liquid Palisades-like product that's used in nail art. If you don't have this, which if you don't do nails, you probably won't, you can just take liquid latex and mix in a little bit of blue acrylic paint, regular paint, and it'll work exactly the same. Otherwise, you can use clear liquid latex or just regular liquid latex, and you'll see. And if you're wondering where to get liquid latex, that can be found any place that sells Halloween stuff around Halloween makeup. It's used for applying Halloween stuff, prosthetics and things like that. And if you're allergic to latex, which I know can be a problem, depending on what you're painting on, you might be able to use white glue instead. That might be an alternative. And I'm trying to think of something else. I don't know of anything else off the top of my head that would work, but you could give white glue a try. It's not as stretchy, and I don't know if it would work, but it'd be worth a shot. You could always do a little test. So then I did 2 coats of the liquid latex everywhere, and then I let it dry completely. I think I had lunch at this point. Sounds about right. And so then after that's dry, you can come back to it and then paint over it with some more of that black paint, and then peel off the liquid latex underneath, just like that. And then fill in all around them, just in the smaller areas with more of that paint. I filled in the bulk around them later, but at the moment, just go through and detail all that area. And then I'm going to take diluted black paint, and I'm going to be shading them in. And so I shaded in each of the tentacles and the bell as well. And when you're shading them in, that's really going to show which one's on top of the tentacles and how they sort of weave in and out of each other. And then after that's on there, you can go through and paint the background. And this is the last one. And so then just make sure you let it dry. And depending on your multi-surface paint, some of them say that they continue to dry for up to 32 hours. They're dry mostly after an hour, but still be a little cautious with it for a while. And that is it. I hope you like this, and I hope I could get some more of these for my sister if she has them on hand. And so check out my Facebook and Instagram for more art, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!